Welcome to American Wetlands Month. This week we're coming to you from Aldermans Ford Conservation Park, which is in the far eastern reaches of Hillsborough County along State Road 39, about 5 miles south of Highway 60. The Aldermans Ford Conservation Park includes approximately 1,400 acres that are owned and managed by Hillsborough County's Department of Parks and Recreation. Near the entrance and parking area, there are picnic shelters, bathrooms, a playground, and other amenities. But the vast majority of this park consists of virtually unspoiled, closed canopy temperate hardwood forest with 5.2 miles of hiking trails, including almost a half-mile of boardwalk. Here we are in a floodplain wetland, and this is important for this area because it is a natural wildlife corridor that goes about 25 miles along the Alifi River into the bay. Wetlands are important because they filter water, they recharge the aquifer, they provide an awesome green space, and the wildlife corridor, among other things. Wetlands are also called the kidneys of the landscape because of their ability to filter the water. Another important point when talking about the conservation and the value of wetlands is for Hillsborough County residents. These protected areas along the floodplain and wetland areas and any areas that have conservation easements over them, they help reduce our flood insurance. And Hillsborough County residents alone can save over $5 million a year on reduced flood insurance premiums because of all these natural areas that are protected in Hillsborough County. Here we have a perfect example of some standing dead trees and what we call them as snags. And this is an excellent example of, even though the tree may be dead, it should still be left alone to remain standing dead, so that we have this wonderful habitat for wildlife. And you can see here from this example, we have woodpecker holes that have been just absolutely in love with these snags here in the floodplain of the Aldermans Ford Conservation Park. This park is special for many reasons, but one of the main reasons is for the park's namesake. In 1848, a settler named James Alderman built a ford, or a crossing of the river here, not too far from here, at the confluence of the south prong and the north prong of the alifi. Confluence is where the two come together, like a ford. This is very important because the settlers in the 19th century had to deal with the Alifi River floodplain, which in some places was a mile wide. So having a ford here allowed them to cross the river more easily, hence the name Aldermans Ford. Here we have an example of Physistegia leptophylla. Its common name is false dragonhead. It is a mint, and you can tell it's in the mint family because the stem is actually square. And this plant also has opposite leaves, and opposite leaves is where the leaves come on opposite directions of the stem, which is different than plants that have alternate leaves, which are alternately spaced along the stem. This plant normally flowers in the spring, which is perfect for American Wetlands Month, and it grows on flowing water systems like here on the banks of the Alifi River. The significance of this site, along with the additional preserve lands found along the Alifi River corridor, is based on the remarkable diversity of habitats that occur as a result of the elevational changes characteristics of the region. The undulating land surface and presence of sinkholes within the hydric hammocks surrounding the upper Alifi are characteristic features of karst topography. These features form during the dissolution of limestone, which is calcium carbonate, beneath the surface of carbonic acid, a weak but naturally occurring acid produced by the mixing of rainwater with carbon dioxide in the air. Several outcrops, such as this that you're seeing here, of limestone within the Alifi River channel are visible near Aldermans Ford. Here we have an example of a towering tree within the banks of the Alifi River. This is a cypress tree. It's huge. It's able to withstand the different fluctuations of water level in the floodplain. You can see down here where we have this fluted base to help stabilize the tree and the moist soil. And you can see here where we have the dark staining where the water has been sitting for longer periods of time to stain the dark. So we can tell that the water level goes really high, higher than I could even reach, is how high the Alifi River can go over into the banks, into this floodplain area, because that is where the floodwater naturally goes. Now there's other species around us here in the park too. We have popash, we have cabbage palm, there are laurel oaks and some water oaks, some water locusts, but it's just really great to walk along the floodplain and see all of these towering trees. Here we have an example of southern needleleaf and resurrection fern, which are epiphytes. Epiphytes are also a common feature of hydric hammocks. Epiphytes include a variety of small seeded plants, typically ferns, orchids, and bromeliads, that are not rooted in the soil and live on other plants instead, typically trees here along the Alifi River. Epiphytes largely depend on the air and rainfall for their nutrients and thrive in the forests surrounding and overhanging the Alifi River due to the constant humidity and moisture afforded by the closed canopy forest. Here we are on the boardwalk in the middle of the floodplain of the Alifi River, and this boardwalk is a perfect place for our vantage point to see the distinct vegetation characteristics that we're going to walk you through today. This is an example of Cephalanthus, or the common name is buttonbush, and you can see these seed heads aren't quite in flower yet, but they are an excellent species of an indicator of a wetland. And you can also see here where the leaves are opposite, another distinction for this plant. This tree species is called water locus, and you can distinguish this tree species because it has compound leaves and these needle-like structures that come off the trunk and the branches. There is some Native American folklore that said that these needles were some of the first that were used by the Native Americans. This tree is also important because it's one species of legume, or a bean species. Here we have an area of the natural floodplain along the Alifi River where it takes these meandering jogs. And here we can see on one side of the river it has an erosion area where the high velocity of the water can carve away at the bank And then on the outer side of the river, it can deposit the sedimentation when the velocity is slower, as we can see here for this white sand bank we have. Along the trail of the boardwalk, we come to an observational platform, and here we see the north prong of the Alifi River, and it's only about 10 feet away from this point to the south prong of the Alifi River. And when these two converge, they form the Alifi River that travels approximately 25 miles to the bay, where we get the estuarine wetland systems that EPC folks will explain in other May's Wetland Month videos. We hope you've enjoyed your walk in wetlands at Aldermans Ford Conservation Park. Come out and enjoy the wetlands for American Wetlands Month in May, and we hope to see you out here in the wetlands enjoying life. Thank you.